USA, the Republic, is the house that no one lives in, by Lee Brobst, assisted by A.F. Beddoe. Our Republic is now celebrating the 200th birthday of the Bill of Rights to our Constitution. Through the wisdom of a few free-thinking men, we have come incredibly far in 200 years. Our nation has been blessed with a prosperity more than any other in world history. The technology in this country compares with no other. Our leadership in world politics and economics has no rival. Yet all this has happened outside the quote-unquote house our predecessors on this continent designed and built. This fantastic and majestic political building, which our forefathers constructed with their lives in sacred honor, has fallen into disuse and now sits empty. When it was new, it was the most beautiful mansion in the world. There was nothing else like it, for it was built on a foundation called the common law. The walls were shaped in liberty by a unique arrangement referred to as the separation of powers, and its roof was made of a transparent material to let in the light of law. So all-encompassing that it is adaptable, encompassing that it is adaptable to any people regardless of color, race, creed, or religion. It didn't crumble overnight. What took place was the result of a delusion, for people would never give up liberty knowingly, only through deception. Gradually, the deceptive rot took hold, and one by one the citizens of the house called a republic moved out for a third-rate structure called a democracy. Napoleon said, "History is a fable agreed upon," because he knew that history repeats itself, especially when the history lessons have not been learned or remembered. Thus our history lessons have fallen into disrepair. Our forefathers founded this nation because they believed they had a God-given right to walk away from enslavement to the king. Yet the very bondage they walked away from has opened the door for the most subtle slavery this world has ever known. So subtle is this slavery that the citizens are entrapped by their own ignorance through offers of enticements called economic benefits. Acceptance of these benefits sets into operation rules and laws that operate outside the Constitution, and thus we have the largest and most unmanageable bureaucracy that has ever existed. A bureaucracy bogged in debt because it has taught its people that government is the provider and problem solver instead of quote-unquote one people. The subjects that used to live in that special mansion known as the Republic, lighted in law. The people's freedom has been lost more because of what they haven't done than what they have done. In the pages that follow, you are going to discover why you are an economic slave and what you can do about the US of A, the Republic. Yes, you can move back into that mansion known as the Republic, for that is what this treatise is about, finding your key to liberty. Always remember that you are the only one that can take back your liberty. No one else can do that for you. You can, and you must act independently of the masses. You and the law are capable of awesome accomplishments in liberty. That is why Thomas Jefferson's statement in the Declaration of Independence is as important today as it was in 1776. It is there your right. It is there your duty to provide new guards for your future security, and such is now the necessity which constrains them, you, to alter your former systems of government. One man with the law is a majority. Alright, we're going to stop there, and we're going to continue on with the next video. Alright, continuing on with Lee Brobst, USA, the Republic, the house that no one lives in. Alright, divine right of kings. Human enslavement has taken all sorts of forms since the beginning of time. The most insidious form is when one individual, such as a king, claims that God gave him the right of enslavement. This is called the divine right of kings. At the root of this assumed right is basic feudal slavery. The divine right of the King of England claimed was the right to have absolute authority over every one of his subjects, so they could not leave his political religious jurisdiction. That is, the king's subjects did not have the right to expatriate according to his assumed divine right over them. The American Revolution of 1776 was the result of individuals who believed that the king did not have the right to prevent the people from leaving his political religious jurisdiction. The revolution was fought over liberty of choice. Our Constitution is the political document that resulted from that struggle, and it guarantees our liberty to choose the political domain we want to be controlled by without compelled performance. Therefore, if we want to move from one political jurisdiction to another, we are guaranteed that right, called expatriation. We are guaranteed the right to change our political territory anytime we desire. Few are aware today that their political choice has been made for them, and it is a political choice that has taken away their absolute rights under the Constitution and its first 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights. They are unaware that they were given at birth an economic privilege of an alternative political domain allowed by the Constitution but operating outside of it. An alternative domain that operates with the same divine right of kings as did the King of England. Thus, the Constitution is operating in an economic capacity rather than a political one. When we ponder why our nation is in the midst of an economic crisis like we have never seen before, we cannot understand it is the result of our ignorance. Ignorance of how our silence has given our federal government and its political subdivisions, called states, permission to tax its people without representation and confiscate their property when they do not go along with the codes and laws, especially the tax laws. Ignorance that has allowed our federal government and its political subdivisions to compel us to perform to laws that are destroying our business by exacting a fee like a protection racket for what should be a right. Instead, our absolute rights are now relative privileges handed out like food in a concentration camp. Instead of being able to stand as an individual for what you believe, every special interest group has become our conscience. Laws and codes by the hundreds are feudalizing the will to produce from the soul of each person by making him pay for the failures, inefficiency, and greed of others, called limited liability. And still, more laws are teaching citizens of all ages that someone else, Uncle Sam, is responsible for us from cradle to grave. Alright, we'll stop there for a moment and we'll go on to the next video. Alright, we're going to continue on. This is Chapter 3, I believe, of USA, the Republic, the House in which no one lives in. So we're going to just kind of touch upon this chapter for a little bit and kind of move around throughout the treatise from now on this point forward. Alright, so he talks about communalism, I'm not sure why he calls it that, but so communalism raises its ugly head. The world has always been filled with people with good intentions. Unfortunately, it seems that the majority of those well-intentioned individuals end up trying to convince the rest that their idea is the best. The extreme in some countries results in a dictator, while in the United States there developed democracy, with its ever-present special interest groups dictating the conscience of the masses. Yes, more problems are caused when good intentions become compelled performance. As many are aware, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. The result is always a loss of individual liberty of conscience. In the beginning, America was a free republic with vast unsettled wilderness open for anybody who had the courage to take up its challenges. Thus, America became the melting pot for religious and social ideals and experiments. Of the many social theories espoused throughout Europe then, there were three theories that fit the mold for America. All three were communistic in nature. The first communitarian idea was set up by the religious sects made familiar by the Puritans, Quakers, Shakers, Rappites, Zorrites, etc. The second communitarian idea was established by Robert Owen of Great Britain, who was born in 1771, and the third communitarian idea was of Charles Fourier of France, who was born in 1772. Both Owen and Fourier experienced the vast upheavals that accompanied the French Revolution from the onslaughts of Napoleon. As the result of the slaughter, Owen and Fourier came up with the communitarian plans to transform the crises-warped society of the 19th century into a more humane order. In 1812, Robert Owen published a paper titled A New View of Society. His treatise discussed the formation of the human character, and he proposed ways of changing society from what he called the poor working classes. Alright, so I'm going to go on and skip around a little bit. And so basically he's talking about these two guys, Owen and Fourier, trying to make a communal style living, and how this eventually leads into our current situation. You'll see what we're talking about. It's basically the introduction of communism, socialism, into our system of government, and we'll go down here. Alright, so right here we'll go, however, if we organize the townships rightly so that unity of interest, concert of action, vast economics, and general riches will be attained, that in spreading these rightly organized townships and rendering them general, a social order will be gradually established in which peace, prosperity, and happiness will be secured to all. The great and primary object which we have in view is consequently to effect the establishment of one association which will exhibit practically the great economics, the riches, the order and unity of the system, and serve as a model for and lead to the founding of others. Alright, sorry, that was a little boring. So basically right here, even though there were other social experimenters, Owen and Fourier had the greatest influence on the leaders of the USA and the corporate special interest groups. This influence figured heavily in the formation of the Limited Liability Act of 1851, the Civil Rights Act of 1866, and the 14th Amendment of 1868. It was these legislative acts that opened the door of the house called democracy that everyone moved into by ignorance. Alright, so I'm going to stop there, and we're going to go on to the next section. Alright, Chapter 4 of USA the Republic, a house of which no one lives in. Democracy and Communism. It is interesting to note that Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels were devoted students of Robert Owen. I'll say that again. It is interesting to note that Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels were devoted students of Robert Owen. Communism of the Bolsheviks was nothing new. It was incubating and maturing in non-violent form right here in the United States of America almost 100 years before Russia ever knew about it. So, communism of the Bolsheviks was incubating in America 100 years before Russia even knew about it. Today, communism is believed to have been defeated as the world has turned to democracy. However, is there any difference? In the case of Smith versus Allwright, the court said the United States is a constitutional democracy. In other words, the court said the United States, as distinguished from the United States of America, a republic, is a democracy that is allowed by the Constitution but operating outside of it. This court case is substantiated by the following. What is futile is to puzzle ourselves as to whether the American or Russian use of democracy is the true or correct one. Let's see who said that. Why is it not letting me click it? I'm not sure. I apologize. The next quote is, the first step in the revolution by the working class is to raise the proletarian to the position of ruling class to win the battle for democracy. Alright, so I guess because I'm screen recording, it's not letting me click on it. A government of Russia could not terminate its existence either by dissolution or by merger, for it was a corporation formed under our laws, and its corporate life continued until the law of its creation declared that it should end. Wow. All right. I really wish I could click on these, but you guys could be reading along. Oh, there we go. So that was under Sokolov versus National City Bank of New York. The last one before that was Karl Marx, and the one before that was Weldon, T.D. Weldon, The Vocabulary of Politics. Weldon was a fellow of the college and tutor in philosophy, Rhodes Scholar. He wrote The Vocabulary of Politics in 1953. Let's go ahead and look again where these are coming in. So basically Karl Marx said he has that to win the battle for democracy. So you're talking about Bolshevik communism coming in the form of democracy. This last one was from the court case. A government of Russia cannot terminate its existence, for it was a corporation formed under our laws. Wow. All right. I'm assuming that maybe that's a Russian court case, but I don't think Russia was formed under the United States laws. But anyway, you guys could figure that out. Let's continue on. Here we see the real meaning of democracy and its communal governing system. A democracy is the opposite of a republic. More on this later. However, remember, unknowingly, you have been participating in a communal government to the loss of absolute liberty, but it can be restored. All right, we're going to stop there. We're going to move on to the next. All right, and this is Chapter 5, I believe, of USA, the Republic, the house in which no one lives in. And we're going to read this, and then we're going to stop for today. All right, private law and the Public-Municipal Law. Let's understand the meaning of private law versus Public-Municipal Law. Private law, also called non-positive law and local law, is a term that is used to describe the principles and regulations that an individual uses to direct his or her own life. It is also called the law of conscience. That is, it is your personal philosophical and religious belief that you use to control your own life and decisions. For example, if you state that you believe that abortions are not proper, then you are verbalizing a part of your own private law. If you express that you believe that it is not proper for you to own a gun, then you are again expressing a part of your own private law. Private law's only area of function outside your own conscience is in the area of contracts. In other words, a person will always use his personal principles of conscience in negotiating any agreement with another individual. An example of this would be the merchant who works out a contract with the company to provide items for sale in a store he owns. His reason for contracting with this particular company is because he believes the items they manufacture should be in every household for health reasons. The merchant's personal beliefs or conscience are involved in this contract as in any contract. Private law operates outside of the Constitution under the rights of private contract as stipulated in Article 1, Section 10. Article 1 in its entirety expresses all the private law that is allowed in the operation of government of the several states of the Union. Section 8 and Clause 17 of this article states that any other private law that is necessary for operation of government for the commercial benefit of the several states of the Union can be legislated. It must be remembered that Article 1 is not entirely private law. There is some public municipal law there. This public municipal law is for the establishment of public services for private benefit, i.e. post roads and post offices, and the public laws of obligations of contracts, etc. It must be understood that private law, as referred to in the Constitution, operated in the private sector as a part of negotiating bilateral contracts. Private law was never meant to operate in the public sector as a basis for controlling public policy. Our founders made that very clear. In the next section on Roman civil law, you will be shown how private law was made into public policy by entrapment to produce compelled performance. Public municipal law, also referred to as positive law and general law, in contrast to private law, is the expression of all the laws that limit government and maintain the separation of powers of the states in this union. Public-Municipal Law is an expression of the people limiting government for their own personal benefit and liberty. I'm going to read that again. Public-Municipal Law is an expression of the people limiting government for their own personal benefit and liberty. Remember, the people are the government. What powers the people do not delegate for the administration of government are kept by them. The public laws are laws that assure the people of maintaining their private rights of bilateral contracts. That's just contracts between two people. I'm going to read that again. The public laws are laws that assure the people of maintaining their private rights of bilateral contracts separate from any government intervention. The only time that public municipal law is used actively for private purposes in a legal sense is when a private right has been violated and the public municipal law is used in the court to address the wrong and correct it. And he's going to speak about Hale versus Henkel right here. The individual may stand... Sorry about that, you guys. The individual may stand upon his constitutional rights as a citizen. I had to turn that off. The individual may stand upon his constitutional rights as a citizen. He is entitled to carry on his own private business in his own way. His power to contract is unlimited. He owes no duty to the state or to his neighbors to divulge his business or to open his doors to any investigation, so far as it may tend to incriminate him. He owes no such duty to the state, since he receives nothing therefrom beyond the protection of his life and property. His rights are such as existed by the law of the land, long antecedent to the organization of the state. He owes nothing to the public, so long as he does not trespass upon their rights. And that's from Hale versus Henkel. I want to just add again, just my own personal opinion. Let's just take it as it is. It's just a personal opinion. So right there, he owes nothing to the public so long as he does not trespass upon their rights. I've spoken about this idea of the common law really resting upon these two basic principles of trespass and contract rights. So there you have nothing owed to the public whatsoever, as long as he does not trespass. And so that's true. That's the first prong, if you will, in your relationship with others, is you don't trespass. If you do get into a relationship in some ways and you make a contract, then that brings up the second prong. Anyway, just my personal opinion. Alright, continuing on. As early as 1782, Jefferson told Monroe that it was ridiculous to suppose that a man should surrender himself to the state. This would be slavery, and not the liberty which the Bill of Rights has made inviolable, and for the preservation of which our government has been changed from the Roman civil law to the common civil law. See section on Roman civil law. Jefferson continued and said that liberty would be destroyed any time there is the establishment of the opinion that the state has a perpetual right to the service of all of its members. The term "that liberty" to which Jefferson refers is public law for private purposes, and that liberty is self-evident and comes before the state and is opposite to the blessings of liberty in the preamble of the Constitution, which is commercial. Interesting. So Lee is saying that the Constitution, the blessings of liberty in the preamble of the Constitution is referring to a commercial aspect of these documents. And he's saying that the term "that liberty" to which Jefferson refers is public law for private purposes. I'm going to go to this number 13, see what it's referring to. Freitag versus CIR, 1991. We're going to have to look that up at some point. Alright, so, yeah, this is a long document, you guys. I'm going to stop here, and I want you guys to check this out. It gets into it deep. We're going to read some other Lee Brobst documents also very soon. And anyway, I hope you guys are having a great day. And once again, this is Greg Ward, straight from the Common Law Rights Society. Peace and blessings.